Welcome to Together for Good, brought to you by Baptist Health Foundation of San Antonio. Together for Good exists to recognize and uplift the many people working together for the good of San Antonio and the surrounding communities. Now here's the host of Together for Good, Cody Knowlton.
Okay, Katie, thanks, and hello, and welcome back, everybody, to Together for Good. This show is being brought to you by Baptist Health Foundation of San Antonio as a part of our mission to honor our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and our Baptist heritage by encouraging and funding health-related programs at area nonprofits and churches. Through Together for Good, we connect our audience to the great work these organizations do in our community. Well, most likely, everybody, there are some listeners in our audience who have received a life-changing disability diagnosis at some point. Perhaps the diagnosis was their own, or it was for their child. When disabilities are first diagnosed, there is often a complicated cascade of grief. There are unexpected moments when you recognize yet another milestone or experience that is now out of reach for you or your loved one. But sometimes there are people who don't accept a disability as a limitation. And today we have one of those folks in the studio with us. Andrew Garcia was born and raised right here in San Antonio. Growing up, he had a passion for skateboarding and action sports. After graduating from UTSA, Andrew went into the nonprofit field supporting adaptive sports organizations, and now he is the executive director and head coach of Ability Skateboarding. So, Andrew, welcome to Together for Good. Thanks for taking some time to kind of get off your skateboard and come in and talk to us about what you guys do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Great. Well, so let's just start off here. I mean, why skateboarding? I mean, how did you, as a co-founder, get here?
Yeah, skateboarding, like you had mentioned, has been a part of, as one of my childhood sports. I didn't do a lot of traditional sports growing up, so skateboarding was kind of my outlet for activity, and it's just something that I carried with throughout my, growing up and my young adulthood, and really found a big passion for skateboarding more in my 20s as an adult. So I was able to really not just skate around, but actually I can practice and get better as a kid, just push around, hanging out with your friends. So yeah, it's always been a part of my life. And, fast forwarding into the adaptive sports world, I've been in and around several adaptive sport organizations that offer anything you could think of, from basketball, boxing, CrossFit, gymnastics, etc. And I was thinking hey, I don't really see a lot of skateboarding out there, for whatever reason that was. And so the more I looked into it, the more I saw a couple organizations around the country offering more niche skateboarding, maybe for autism or maybe more spinal injury focused, like special skate wheelchairs. So I just saw this, and, I was working with the organization here in San Antonio that I was like, we could easily bring something like this to our programs and do it really well, because it was a really good organization. So, after countless conversations of skateboarding with my executives at the time, was like, let's give it a shot. Let's try this out. And it was one of the really, really fun and safe program, to their surprise. And, that's kind of where I got the idea. It's hey, we can really push this and really incorporate more people.
Yeah. That's so cool. Well, firstly, I recommend our listeners take a look at the videos on your social media, because words can't quite capture that look of pure joy on the participants' faces. And I watched them just yesterday, in fact. So it's something very special. So, but I'd love to hear your take on what these activities mean to the people you work with.
Yes, the activities can mean a lot. Sometimes it's the simple experience of skateboarding that they themselves or maybe their family realized, I could never do this. Hey, I have a physical limitation, or I have maybe a cognitive limitation that can make it more challenging. Skateboarding is challenging for people without disabilities. So, to have that, kind of that thought in your head is is it even possible? So bringing that experience to someone and showing them that they can do it, it just breaks down so much barriers. If you look at a lot of the surveys we do after our programs, and if you just ask AI, what's the common word you find here? It's confidence. Mm-hmm. Confidence is built. So a lot of families and participants are just, the confidence is growing, just not even just in the skateboarding, but a lot of aspects of life. it kind of grows on them and gives them a little edge to really be confident in who they are.
That's so cool. Can you explain some of the physiological challenges your participants face? I mean, what's the process for them determining what activities and equipment are really kind of safe for them?
Yes. Disabilities do present themselves in a lot of different ways, especially physically. You could have mobility issues, or you could be missing body limbs like an arm or a leg. It's going to make it challenging. So us as, the experts in adaptive skateboarding, we have different devices that we use, whether that's a traditional skateboard, a special wheelchair, a modified skateboard. And so we're able to kind of, learn who our participants are, talk to them, communicate with their caregivers, and see what's going to work best for them. Some people may be there for the experience, and some people, depending on their physical disability, they can go a little bit further, more independently. So we try to work with them to just trying to find, meet them where they're at and see what we can get going. But either way, they will be rolling, they will be skateboarding.
Having wheels beneath your feet, I'm sure, can be unnerving. Even for folks with typical mobility. Are your participants ever scared or kind of reluctant to try activities? And if so, how do you kind of work through that with them?
Yes, it can be very nerve-wracking. I think the biggest thing is the coaches, even myself, presenting our confidence, because if they see that you're if you're a little worried, they'll notice and they'll make them worried. So, coming in very calm and encouraging to them, letting them know that you're there for them, that you're going to keep them safe. And yeah, that's how we kind of work through it. And, little by little, for example, I do a lot of hand holding, making sure people are safe. Safety is our number one priority. But, I'll do like a 10-second count, like, hey, no hands, one hand. And then eventually, they're rolling and, they're not really paying attention to how long they're rolling without my assistance. So we can find ways to build that confidence and get them more comfortable out there.
Can you describe for our audience some of the adaptations that you've made to equipment?
Oh, yes. So we have a handful of adaptive skateboards. Our most common is our dual cane skateboard. So if you can imagine, it's a skateboard, very typical, but there is two canes mounted. These are custom canes, so they're not like, just a regular cane. They're custom built and they're mounted directly into the skateboard. So if you have like a mobility issue or even a confidence issue, you are able to, find a little stability, and we help them roll. We also have a walker board. So we want to use the word granny walker, it's a granny walker. It's a walker with the skateboard strapped to it. So that gives you a little bit more points of contact for support. So the cane board is good, but the walker has more walls around it so you can hold on to it. One of our biggest devices is our adaptive skateboarding frame. So it's about 6 feet tall, 4x4 frame. And we can harness up adults or children that have very little to no mobility. So they're able to be harnessed up and standing on a skateboard, and we take them rolling through the park. That's a real fun one to use. And, we could even take them to grind a rail on it. So, not just skateboarding, but you're grinding a rail too. So we found a lot of success with that. We're actually one of the only organizations in the U.S. that has this device. So it's a very powerful device for experience and inclusion.
Andrew, talk a little bit about your population that comes to you. Are mostly adults, mostly children, mixed between both?
Yes, we serve all populations, all disabilities. We like to tell people that we serve ages 5 to 99 or 5 to infinity. We work with a ton of different other nonprofits, sports and recs departments for cities, and even adult day centers. So at the adult day centers, we do have older adults to younger adults. And then, of course, with other nonprofits, they may be youth focused and stuff like that. So we do get a wide range of people that, we say skateboarding's for everyone, and we mean it.
Do you ever have folks that try it once and say, I don't want to do this anymore? Or you pretty much have success with just about everybody?
Yeah, I think that's life, I tried it, I had fun, but, I probably won't do it again. And that's fine. We do have adults and children that, hey, I'll do that again, or they'll go 50 feet. I'm like, I got my skateboarding in and I'm happy with that. So, and a lot of the times when we return to different regions or different partnerships. We see a lot of the returning riders, and so you do get an idea of who really enjoys it, and they want to get better at it or just experience it. So it's really fun. It's really fun.
Well, talk to us about the safety precautions built into the programming.
Yes. So safety, we strive for 1-on-1 participant to coach or volunteer ratio. That is our biggest first safety gear or safety precautions. Of course, everyone wears helmets, elbow pads, knee pads, wrist guards. And safety is our priority because if you talk to anybody out there, 90% of the population or even higher say, hey, did you skateboard as a kid? And they're like, yeah, I got on a skateboard and I fell off. And then that was it. So if you have a bad experience skateboarding, you're more than likely not going to want to do it again. So we work really hard, like I said, with the safety gear, the 1-to-1 ratio, going into a skate park, going into a facility, making sure we're checking the space, we're checking for debris, we're checking and making sure that it's a good environment so that we can just keep rolling without having any problems or, safety or, getting hurt and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm sure safety in that regard for both the able-bodied person and the disabled person is priority number one.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, listeners, if you're just now joining us, welcome. This is Together for Good. I'm your host, Cody Knowlton, and here in the studio with me is Andrew Garcia, and he is the executive director and head coach of Ability Skateboarding and Action Sports. I'm learning more about the powerful way these sports can help people with disabilities. Andrew, not long ago, we were able to sit down and talk with Casey Wernley from Kinetic Kids. You probably know Casey. And I know Ability Skateboarding has a long-standing relationship with that organization, as do we at the Baptist Health Foundation. So can you tell us more about that relationship? And are there any other organizations you partner with?
Yes. Like I had mentioned earlier, there was an organization here, which was Kinetic Kids, that I was a part of the team. And, they're very great leaders and a very well-run organization. And I just knew that with them, we could, that's where we launched our first skate program ever, me as a just as a staff member with them. And I just knew that it'd be a long-lasting partnership and the program could grow. And, I think working with them gave me a lot of insight on how to safely run programs and how to work with these populations, prior to graduating. It was just, I didn't know anything about adaptive sports, and, working with Kinetic Kids for so long definitely put me in a good position. So that allowed us to work with Kinetic Kids, but around the state and the city, we work with countless organizations. Like I said, nonprofits, parks and recs departments. Some park and recreation departments have their own adaptive programming. So a lot of the cities that kind of figure out who we are, they're like, hey, no one does that around here. Would you be willing to come out and work with us? So, we work with the North Houston district, and they have a public skate park. We work with the Macbeth Rec Center in Austin, Texas. They have an adult day hub for adults to be there daily and have activities for them. So in the last 3 years as an organization, I think we've worked with over 50 different organizations, even as far as LA, Vermont, Alabama. Our reach is really far reaching just because there's not a lot of adaptive skateboarding out there.
Yeah, that is incredible. Those are long distances.
Yes.
Wow. Well, talk to us a little bit about wheelchair motocross, or WCMX. What does that sport look like currently, and is it something we might see in the Paralympics?
Oh, yeah, good question. So WCMX, it's been around for almost 20 years. With the cane boards and the other adaptive skateboards, we can help somebody that might be primarily a wheelchair user. But for the most independents, there is special wheelchairs built for the skate park, and that's a wheelchair motocross. So these wheelchairs have super strong rims, super strong frame. They have shock suspensions in them, like a mountain bike shock suspension. So, if you jump off something huge, it's not going to break your back. It's got a lot of safety built in there with the suspension. And then it also has grind plates on the bottom. So, they're able to grind rails and grind ledges and, get some hops in there, catch some air. And, we tell riders hey, skating's cool. You're doing good at it with our assistance, but you're going to go a lot further with this WCMX wheelchair. And we work with a lot of organizations. There's an organization called World WCMX, and we work with them as a kind of like a grassroots organization to find more participants as they work on national and international competition. So we've helped with their international competition in Alabama 2 years ago. And we also will be partnering later this year for some projects. So yeah, there is a big push with us and these organizations to find new athletes to get Paralympic inclusion, not just for WCMX, but for adaptive skateboarding. There's just not enough athletes out there currently willing, to go out there, and it is a little challenging. There is a little bit of possible injuries involved. So, but yeah, we want to try to create that safe experience. It's so fun when you tell someone who's they use a chair daily, and you put them in one of our WCMX wheelchairs, and you're like, "Are you ready to grind that rail?" And they're just like, "What?" And you're like, "Yeah, this chair can grind a rail," and it's just it's a really awesome experience to see them grind a rail for the first time. And yeah, I'm sure that stays with them.
Mm-hmm. So I have to ask, are you still an active skateboarder? I mean, you're a little older now than when you got started. Are you still out there on the skateboard?
I do skateboard, not as much as I used to. I'm a dad now and running the nonprofit, but every time we run a program, definitely hop on the board, and sometimes we get to go to really cool skate parks. And so, yeah, sometimes I'm a little too tired after the program, but for the most part, I keep the board in the car. You never know when you're going to need it.
Absolutely. So, Andrew, skaters are perceived as being kind of cool. So are you able to bring that feeling of cool to your participants?
Definitely. I'm a very cool guy, I guess you can say. So when I'm out there in the park, my, the natural skater just comes out, the lingo comes out. We teach kids and adults about park etiquette and being in that culture and working with everyone. We're like, hey, it's a shared park and we're all there. We're all sharing it. So we're all skaters today. And we share some cool things like, hey guys, if a skateboard goes flying, what do you say? You say board. You yell skateboard, just like golf. You yell four. You yell board, so everyone's alert, and that there's a flying skateboard out there somewhere.
That's actually very helpful, listeners. Keep in mind, if you're out on a trail somewhere and you hear the word board, you might want to be careful and know a skateboard is heading your way. So, good information.
Yeah.
Well, what are the health benefits for your participants in doing this?
Skateboarding definitely counts as your daily activity. It takes a lot of your energy, a lot of your muscle and focus. A lot of our, health-wise, just the physical, but also the mental and social aspects of being healthy. Being out there and being a part of something, I think goes a long way for our participants. Even circling back to the surveys, talking about their confidence growing. Some people, they deal with all kinds of stuff, and especially living with a disability, you could be having not just physical health issues, but those, mental struggle challenges. And we've seen a lot of improvement, even behavior. We've worked with some neurodivergent schools, and, we did a program, and then we came back and we're like, this kid he's just doing so much better ever since y'all came and skated, which is kind of crazy to hear, but there is back science behind that. And so, I think just, all kinds of ways of just, getting people out there, and it's an autonomous sport, which is really cool. So like if they are able to go out there and keep skating without us, like they can do it anywhere. There's skate parks all over the country, hard surfaces, parking lots, tennis courts. So, we hope that it's something they could stick with them long enough so that they can continue to stay healthy and active.
Well, as a city, how accessible would you say San Antonio is, in your opinion? I mean, are there specific areas of challenge or growth?
No, our city is actually doing really good in that aspect. I have met with some park builders as the city continues to build new skate parks or update parks. And there is a whole conversation of inclusive design for skate parks so that WCMX riders or adaptive skaters can have access to our parks. Our parks are pretty good. But I've seen other parks across the country where it's like, there's a skate park, but there's no sidewalk to get there. So how are you going to get there if you're in a wheelchair or if you have mobility issues? So San Antonio is doing very good there, and they are keeping in mind for the future of incorporating more accessibility features for skate park building.
Mm-hmm. So we're here in San Antonio is kind of your favorite park for what you guys do.
Currently, our favorite skate park is Pearsall Skate Park. It's on the south side of San Antonio. It's a very large park. It's very beginner friendly. And it's big enough where we can share the space. We never have to shut the park down for our programs, which I also think is very cool for the general public to see others out there skating. And I think they embrace that. I'm busy, but I can kind of look over and I see head nods, I see smiles. So it's a really powerful thing for us to be out there.
That's awesome. So how important is volunteer support to your work? Do you have enough volunteers?
Definitely, volunteers are a core essential of our programming, because it comes back to safety. And if we push for that 1-to-1 ratio, that increases our safety, motivation, social aspects. So yes, we always are looking for new volunteers that want to help us, and maybe you're not physically active. We can find other ways for you to help. But, sometimes when you're out there working with our participants, we need you to be ready to go. But yeah, we're always looking for volunteers to support us. It makes the program a little bit more exciting, a little bit more action.
How can someone contact you if they want to volunteer?
Yes, if you want to volunteer, you can go to abilityskateboarding.org. We have a volunteer tab there. You could sign up for any upcoming programs and see what we have available. If you have more questions, you could always join our email list or our contact list at our website as well.
Mm-hmm. So, Andrew, how important was it for you to stay local, here in San Antonio to kind of champion this?
I think it's very important. I have had the opportunity to travel the country and work with some other national organizations that, provide services around the country for other adaptive sports. And after seeing that, I guess saw the large void of like I said, the skateboarding culture and the action sports. So I was like, San Antonio can really embrace this. And, I think it's, I tell people it's kind of really cool that we really are pioneering the sport here in your backyard. So, you would think it'd be like on the West Coast or somewhere on the East Coast. But, here in South Texas, we are really pushing the adaptive skateboarding, and, the people of our city, the community benefit from that. But, others from around the country take note. So they see what we have here, and, they're eager to have it in their community as well.
Well, how can the community support your work? We've talked about the volunteering part, but, for those of us who don't have disabilities, how can we make life easier or more fulfilled for those who do?
There's so many ways to support us. Like you had mentioned earlier, volunteering with us. We are a nonprofit, of course, so we always take donations, or if you have old skateboards, old helmets, or anything like that you'd like to give back, you could always reach out to us, and we can get those boards refurbished and get them into the hands of our participants. But yeah, those are the main ones, helping us out with equipment, donations, and volunteer support. Following us online, sharing our stuff, that always helps, goes a long way too. Following our social media channels and just sharing that, and really opening up other people's minds to what's out there. And it's such a feel-good opportunity for people to see and embrace.
So if I'm in the park by chance and y'all are happening to be there, do y'all recommend, folks come around and cheer, and or is that disruptive to what you're trying to do if kind of, a group of 10 folks just happen to be around and start seeing what y'all are doing and are wanting to kind of just be there to encourage?
No, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think that's really cool. We would always take an audience and, cheer people on. Motivation and support goes a long ways in the park. Skateboarding isn't easy, so a little encouragement goes a long way.
All right. Well, Andrew, I appreciate you coming in today. I really do. What you've created in this community is rare and just wonderful. So we're so glad you decided to stay here, right here in San Antonio, and help us make this city a true home for everybody. So grateful for you, my friend. So let me close us with a word of prayer, and we will depart. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the outdoors that reminds us you are Lord and Creator. And Lord, the outdoors is being made more accessible and enjoyable thanks to organizations like Andrew's. And so we're grateful for this organization, for Andrew who founded it, his vision, his passion for it. And we just pray for him as he leads and guides and directs this great group and the kids, the adults that come along that want to be a skateboarding activity and make it real for them. I just pray for them as they do that. Just give them the confidence and the willingness to do that. So go with them, and we just pray for this day and that it be glorifying to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Listeners, thank you for joining us today. We hope you've been encouraged by the work being done in our community to improve the lives of our neighbors. You can catch our episodes anywhere you get your podcast or by visiting Baptist Health Foundation of San Antonio's website, bhfsa.org/Together for Good. We're going to be back next week, as always, with another great conversation about health matters and the work of nonprofits in our area. So God bless and take care, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in today for Together for Good. We hope you've been encouraged, uplifted, and inspired. Until our next time together, may the Lord bless and keep you. And in all things, to God be the glory.